quick introduction, Brian Benjamin. I lead executive education for Ivy Business School, and we have been a business school in Canada, based at our campus in London, Ontario, and Toronto for over 100 years. And we have had a campus here in Hong Kong for, I was going to say over 25 years, but it's actually 27 years and counting. So this is a very important market for us, and it's when we talked to Madeline about the conference, it was a perfect connection in terms of super connector, interconnected between Canada and Hong Kong, so it feels like very much a second home, and we have a lot of wonderful clients and alumni here as well. So I am going to introduce my three guests because really my role is to ask a couple of questions, set a little bit of context, and make sure that we don't go over our time. So it's a very stressful position to be in. So I'm actually going to go in reverse order. So Fanny Chan is up first. So CHRO, we have a lot of relevant examples. So CTF Life has gone through a big rebranding exercise. And we spent some time together earlier this week, so we know a little bit about what we're going to hear in terms of some of the corporate examples. Next up, Sharon Chow. We look at the work that Raffles Family Office is doing, and we look at some of the experience that you bring to the table. So we're really excited to have you here on our panel. And again, going to hear a balance between personal examples as well as some organizational examples as well. And Michael Yu, Managing Director, we all know a little company called Google. Once, probably spent a little bit of time with them, both in our personal as well as our business lives. But again, some great examples, I think, in terms of what we're going to hear from both organizational perspective, but also from a personal perspective as well. So let me set the context. Responsible leadership is a big, big term. Organizations are grappling with, how do I deliver short-term results? So what's going to happen the next quarter versus what's going to happen over the next year, over the next couple of years? What's the next quarter even going to look like? Things are changing so rapidly. So leaders are making decisions day in and day out. And in some cases, getting brand new information just a couple of days or a couple of weeks or a couple of months later that actually has them thinking about the decisions that they made just a short while ago. How do we balance sustainable leadership, sustainable organizations with short-term results as well, too? So we're going to hear what responsible leadership means. We're going to hear some good tangible examples. We're going to open it up at the very end for some questions from the audience. So listen very carefully to our great panelists, and by all means, if you have something to add and a question that you'd like to hear from one of the panelists or multiple perspectives, you get a chance to ask as well. And I think we're going to give our online delegates the opportunity as well. So we're going to have a free-flowing conversation. I'm going to ask some questions. We'll get some different voices in, but we'll start to hear our panelists build from each other as well. So let's start. We're going to get each voice into the conversation. So we'll go in the order that I made the quick introduction. So Fanny, you're up first. Give a quick intro to you and the organization, and most importantly, what does responsible leadership mean to you?
Okay, thank you, Brian. Good morning, everybody. I'm Fanny Chan, the CHRO of Chow Tai Fook Life Insurance Company Limited. So from now on, I will call it in short CTF Life. CTF Life is actually a leading insurance company in Hong Kong. We are going to celebrate 40 years old in Hong Kong, and I will share a little bit more about a rebranding, a transformation in the later part of this discussion. So to me, actually, my career, I have almost 30 years experience in the banking industry before I joined Chow Tai Fook Life. So through my career, I joined as a loan issuing bank, HSBC, and then more importantly, I was the founder to set up the HR admin function for a Chinese bank which is headquartered in Hong Kong and set up very first back in 2012 in Hong Kong. So it's really an entrepreneur who started up, bring up my sleeve to build up everything from HR admin. So to me, in my career journey, I always reflect on two things. Number one is about the resilience, The other thing is about the adaptability. And I think these two elements tie closely with our discussion today in the context of responsible leadership. And actually, every single step in my banking and financial services career reinforced myself that every single decision we make is not only focusing on the short-term and immediate returns, but more about the impact, the sustainability, and also the longer-term impact to the wider community, not only about staff, company, but also other stakeholders that we all care about. So hopefully this is a good start.
Wonderful. Thank you, Fanny. And we're going to dig in on some of those decisions that leaders need to make. So, Terrence, let's get your voice into the conversation here.
Thanks, Brian, and thanks, Fanny. Terrence Chow, Group Chief Operating Officer for Raffles Family Office. Bit about myself. Canadian, born and raised in Toronto, alumni from the best business school in Canada. No offense to my fellow B school colleagues. Grew up professionally primarily at one organization, Canadian Bank, that's Blue. Recently joined a privately owned outfit last year. I'd say sustainable leadership, I think, and responsible leadership, two things would be something that I reiterate kind of on a regular basis. Number one, zoom out, right? Whatever problem you might be dealing with at that particular moment, whatever issue, whatever challenge, just take a step back and zoom out, because usually there's a heck of a lot more other variables at play that might inform what decision needs to be made, because it's very easy to get stuck into one specific spot. And then probably secondly, almost a return to traditional leadership values, particularly with more and more technology, just taking personal accountability and at times putting your own neck on the line, and also at times maybe, at personal risk, just step in front of it, right? Leaders lead from the front, not so much from the sidelines and from the back. And so just a firm belief that I think that's important, especially with more and more tools available to us. That human element of taking that personal accountability is important.
Excellent. Thank you. So last but not least, Michael, a little introduction and responsible leadership means to you.
All right. First of all, a huge thank you for everyone tuning in and for being here. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Michael Yu, and I have the pleasure of leading our Google Hong Kong operations here. And thank you all for using our products every single day. So maybe what I'll do is I'll share a little bit about the part of Google maybe you don't know about, and I think this will tie in quite nicely to our discussion today. So you use all of our search, our YouTube products, all this kind of stuff, but we're part of a much larger holding company called Alphabet. And the major bets within Alphabet are really thinking about our long-term goals, right? And so if you dig into our earnings reports, you'll see this category called Other Bets, where we are losing billions of dollars every single quarter making some of these investments. But some of these investments are really starting to take shape. I'll give you an example. We have a great company within Alphabet called Waymo. And Waymo is already operational with self-driving autonomous cars in many cities in the US already. So if you ever have a chance to fly Air Canada down into San Francisco, you can download the app, and actually a Waymo car will show up and deliver you to your destination. For example, we also have drone companies as well that are doing deliveries, and we're doing testing this in the US already with major organizations like Walmart and all this kind of stuff too. All right. And then for responsible leadership, I think two words really come to mind for me, and it's very much ingrained in how we operate within Google, is we are mission first. So we think really about the long term. Our founders have a very famous saying of, if you can find us 1 billion users, we'll figure out how to make money afterwards, right? And if you think about a lot of our products, we very much put them out there first, right? Because we believe that knowledge empowers everybody, and how do you create incredible learning opportunities? The second one I would say is integrity, continuing to do the right thing. And we are at a very important point in technology's history. We will look back at this moment and we will see some incredible innovation, not just in AI, but we have some incredible breakthroughs in quantum as well. And it's very important for us as an organization to be both bold in how we push forward on that, but responsible as well. And so these are the things that we speak almost daily about within our company to ensure that we're doing the right thing.
That's awesome. Thank you to each of our panelists for their quick introductions and a little bit about what responsible leadership means. I'm going to dig in on the qualities of a responsible leader. I think all three of you touched on it as part of your introduction. But tell us a little bit more about, what does a responsible leader look like? What are some of the attributes? What are some of the skills? What are some of the things that frankly, they're actually struggling with that they have to keep in mind? So, Terrence, I'm gonna go to you first, and then I'm gonna let Fanny and Michael build on your comments.
Okay, so why don't I unpack my second comment, which is about putting personal kind of neck on the line to help navigate whatever situation. It's easy to point at something that didn't go quite right and say, so-and-so messed up, or that particular vendor didn't deliver what they're supposed to deliver, or that particular deployment technology wasn't quite designed to spec and there was misinterpretation in the requirements. There's always reasons why something didn't work out. But in my mind, responsible leadership means the person in charge, and I'll quote a famous kind of personality, Simon Sinek, it's not about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in your charge, right? And so how does that leader, again, put their own kind of credibility and neck on the line and say, you know what, that's on me. I didn't review it enough, I didn't coach enough, I didn't do something enough, and so we didn't get the result that we want, but let me take ownership of that and make sure that we rectify it and we fix it and we drive forward, right? And so with more and more technology and with more and more third-party service providers that every large organization, and small for that matter, start to utilize, again, leadership that says, that's on me, that's my bad, I own it, let me take care of that. And if it's somebody on the team that didn't quite operate at the level that they needed to, that's on me as well. I didn't provide enough guidance. Really owning that. And look, sometimes leaders will take heat, but that's part of being a leader, right? And so I think that's kind of where I would start, and that's kind of how I probably would finish as well.
And it's not about making the perfect decision on the first time. It's a great comment, right? It's when things don't go well, who do you look to? What kind of feedback are you getting? What are you learning from the experience? So Michael, I know Google makes lots of great decisions. I'm sure there's been challenges as well too.
So maybe I could talk a little bit about some of our qualities. And so our HR teams internally at Google are called people operations, right? Because we feel that is a very clear articulation, actually, of that organization and what they're responsible for. And then leadership for us is very clearly defined by our leadership expectations at our company. And so, we always have career chats with many people within the organization, and the first step is, hey, we want to be a manager. But we can also show them in our leadership expectations that being a manager is only one of 9 things that we expect from our leaders. And some of these other things that we expect from our leaders include how are you building bridges, of course, across the organization? How are you delivering the impossible? How are you still today at Google, we are 27 years old, still acting like an owner and an entrepreneur? Or how are you respecting each other, or respecting the opportunity, or respecting our users? Because without users, we don't have a company. And so for us, it's very clear, actually, right? The things that we look for, even I am evaluated on these 9 things. And every single year, we do reflection on what we could do better. We develop our own learning plans, right? I was just talking to Brian about how every Googler has $10,000 each year to think about how they're going to grow and learn and dive into whatever it is they need to learn. And one of the things we look at for new people joining Google, and so during our interview process, is this ability to learn. Right? Our company and our industry is moving so fast. If you look at what has happened in the last 12 months alone, all of us are going back to school at Google, right? We're learning about AI, we're learning about new technologies, we're learning about what's going on. Yes, we are learning about AI, right? Because it is moving so fast. And so these are the things that we absolutely look for. And then they can apply these into the decisions that they make each and every single day, whether it's being accountable for the decisions, owning up to it, acknowledging that not everything goes right, and how do we move forward from there.
Makes me feel better when Googlers are learning about AI. So my lack of understanding, or things are changing fast, right? Rapidly. That whole notion of lifelong learning, right? And continually, getting new information and bringing it forward. So Fanny, you mentioned in your introduction a little snippet around how do you measure success beyond financial success. So what are some of the metrics that you and your colleagues in your organization will take a look at?
Okay, thank you, Brian. Actually, responsible leadership sits in the heart of CTF Life. And where we start with is actually our vision. Our vision is we create value beyond insurance. And that's how exactly what we goes beyond financial metrics in terms of delivering our business. We collaborate, leverage closely with our diverse conglomerate in the Chow Tai Fook Group, whereby we extend and beyond all the different initiatives to bring value to the wider community. And in our core value that also sit closely with our responsible leadership, our value is about growth, GROW. And these 4 words tell exactly the quality and how we measure the success. First of all, grow as one. We need our people to be collaborative. We are highly collaborative, work together, think big, go as one. The other one, R is about respect. So again, one of the metrics measure is about how we build the respect, build equality, build a D&I measure, so that we get our work done with the underlying respect with each other. And then O is about ownership. Ownership is tied closely with how we measure success at CTF Life. We take full ownership not only on what we are doing, we are starting to do, but we elaborate, we co-op, we encourage our people to go beyond their comfort zone to take full ownership. And one of the key examples that we cite is that we have a recent collaboration with the Kai Tak Sports Park, which is a real landmark in the GBA. And we are very pleased that CTF Life is actually the exclusive insurance funding partner for the arena in this sports park. So in this mega exercise that go to multiple stakeholders, not to mention about government officials, NGO, all the financial partners, construction, everybody, it's all about the ownership element that really take us to where we are today to have this established landmark in the Kai Tak Sports Park. And last but not least, W is all about work ethics. We emphasize ethics. We drive all our success metrics and measure on people in terms of how they deliver, in terms of accountability, in terms of the uphold the ethical value and the standard. So hopefully this will share my context in terms of how we define and measure the success.
Thank you. There's the what component and the how, right? There are many different ways to achieve the results. Terrence, Michael, anything you'd want to add in terms of measurement beyond the traditional financial measures?
I mean, I think having grown up in a large corporate where typically those types of KPIs, the what and the how, are pretty well defined, coming into a relatively younger, more entrepreneurial business at Raffles, it's hard to quantify kind of qualitative immeasurables are almost more important. They kind of come to the forefront. I mean, and I reflect on a conversation that I had with our founder, Chi-Man. One of the very first conversations that we had before I joined was, like, what does he want out of me? Look, you've got a great outfit. You've built your business, with relative success. Where can I add value? And the real kind of icing on top of that conversation was that sense of humility that I got from him, right? Like, he said to me, "Look, Terrence, you ran large corporates, and you probably would have forgotten more than I'll ever learn in terms of how to scale that business and run it. When I started this company, I was maybe a manager, right? Having left with a little bit of experience under my belt, and so I need leaders with all these other kinds of attributes and experience to help me scale the business up. So that sense of humility, that willingness to be honest about where his own experience began and ended, I think was refreshing. And then building on that, it became much more about wanting to leave a legacy, right? So we talked about short-term KPIs and meeting them, but I think in his mind, it's about, probably similar to the founders of Google as well, right? It's about leaving that legacy, making sure that the customers are taken care of first and foremost. The profits will come, right? We get the users and our client experience right, the profits will come. And so how do you really take that very long-term view of leaving a legacy for generations to come, which resonates with our clients as well, and just trust that if we did the right things, then everything else will sort itself out.
I love it. Humility and do the right things, profits, money follows. Michael.
Look, the one thing I would say is that, I'm a little biased here because I've been at Google almost 14 years, okay? Also graduated from the best business school in the world. Second generation, okay? My dad graduated from there too. But what I'll say is I think we do a real good job of encouraging everybody to innovate, to push forward. So I'll give you an example. We've got thousands of researchers at Google who are not only doing their core job, but finding ways to solve problems that are really meaningful to them and the world. So an example of that, if you ever have a chance to pop on YouTube and listen to Demis, who's our head of DeepMind at Google, they're building a lot of the core technologies that are not just going into our products, but we're going out there and giving them out to the world as well. So an example of that would be AlphaFold. So we now have AI modeling that can synthesize all the proteins to help everything from accelerating drug discovery to solving some of the world's most interesting and difficult problems. And if you look at his passion, beyond just helping Google be successful, he thinks AI can solve, the world's health problems. And so how do you incentivize a leader to go and do that? And if you pop into the park here, the science park, actually many of these health startups are actually using AlphaFold, and they've got interesting drugs in their pipeline that will solve incredible problems, not just for the people of Hong Kong, but hopefully there's an incredible discovery here that can help solve some of the world's biggest problems as well. And so I think these are examples where there's no clear ROI to training this model and then open sourcing and giving it out. But it's that balance, right? And if you can solve that, one of our other alphabet companies is actually focused on health tech. And so all of a sudden, if you create an ecosystem that is also thinking about this problem, it leads to incredible innovation. The final thing I would say, and there's many incredible leaders here, is how do you incentivize risk-taking, calculated risk-taking. So, our Astro Teller, who's our CEO for X is the company in Google that is responsible for some of our biggest moonshots in the world. And if you listen to him, every single day they are failing. There's some idea that they are evaluating that they are failing. And he gets this question a lot. It's like, how do you balance, your P&L versus not burning too much cash and really finding the right thing that hits? He says, well, you have to create an incentive system where people put up their hand and say, hey, this thing, we've got really smart people in the room and we can already see that this thing is not going to work. So if I axe my own project, it's likely they will get a higher rating and promoted, actually, right? And so it's these interesting counter incentives at Google where actually that's a good thing. If you are canceling your project and saving Google $1 million, let's say, that should be rewarded, right? And today, what happens in a lot of organizations is they keep going and they keep pushing because they're worried, about their ratings or doing well. And so, at Google, it's very counter to some of that. Even within our team, we've got an award that we call is the Courageous Penguin Award. If you ever see the videos on YouTube, right, there's the first penguin that dives off. The reason they do that is because they're checking if the water is clear of danger. It takes guts, right? And so we want to incentivize our Googlers to be that courageous penguin, to dive in, to take a look at what's going on. Even if it's a failure, how do you share that learning back with the organization? And we keep doing that.
Wonderful examples, right? Try and fail fast. Have the courage to say this didn't work out. Here's what I learned, and to back out. Terrence, you mentioned a very important word in the conversation is humility, right? And the willingness to sort of look beyond self. So let's use that as a bit of a segue. I'm going to throw this one open. So whoever grabs the mic first, hopefully someone grabs the mic, otherwise a cold call, is how do we incentivize a broader culture? You've each touched on it, but how do responsible leaders, so there's one thing about me being a responsible leader and demonstrating responsible leadership, another thing about building responsible leaders around me as well. So what can an organization, what can an individual do to build a culture of responsible leaders? So build other responsible leaders. Who's grabbing first? All right.
Okay,
I was going to call you anyway, so
Lady
perfect.
first. Lady first. I think I can immediately chip into Brian's question is about what we witness first is about lead by example, take full ownership, establish a clear culture with a proper system, including A to Z from a people perspective. Encourage the people to seek perspective, different perspective, learn from each other. We failed before that, but we will come up again. And it is in this area that in my capacity as a CHRO, we did repeatedly and relentlessly with a lot of, basically all the users and all Ivy we're happy to partner with about the different types of internship and mentorship. And we do see the immense value as we build the next generation by investing our time, resources, and most importantly, leadership effort and the steering direction to guide, drive, and also set an example for the next generation. So this is what I've been practicing, and so over to Terrence and Michael.
I can't emphasize leading by example enough, right? Like that is first and foremost maybe the only measuring stick, right? Like it's fine to talk about values and to present them on PowerPoint slides and stand up in front of a town hall and discuss this and that. But if you don't live and breathe it, right, then it's kind of all make-believe, right? I've personally been told myself that I share too much. Like, why are you so transparent? Like, can you really trust your people with that particular detail or that particular data point or that particular fact in terms of the state of the union or how the business is doing? And my response is always, trust is a two-way street, right? If I can't trust my team members and my colleagues with particular truths about the business, then how can I expect them to trust me that we're going to collectively make the decisions together and own it together, and I'm not going to duck at the first sign of smoke, right? So I feel like, and maybe this is awfully Canadian nice of me, but like if I feel like if you share more and you create that togetherness and that collective ownership, that owner-operator mindset, then everybody feels like, okay, we're all in it together. And then we can actually do something great, as opposed to, holding bits and pieces of information and somehow using that as, a sign of leadership. I think that fails over the long term.
Absolutely. Anything you'd add to that, Michael?
I believe that culture is co-created by everyone within the organization. And so role modeling is a huge part of that, but also providing a psychologically safe environment where feedback is amazing, right? So I'll give you an example from even in my life. I noticed that my manager was going on vacation but not telling anybody, right? Like it's a small thing, right? And then they would respond to emails and be on and off here and there. I said, hey, when you go on vacation, it's really important that you tell everybody so that they don't bother you, and nor should you respond unless it's absolutely urgent. And by doing that, you create an environment where it's safe for everyone to also take the same vacation and not be on all the time or having to respond or whatever it is, right? And so, as always, he pauses a little bit and he says thank you, which is also good, right? Because you're not reacting in the moment. You're just acknowledging, listening, and then thinking through what you're going to do about that. And so he's doing a lot more of that now, right? Or we create some guardrails. So for example, here in Hong Kong, we have lots of incredible passion projects. So one of the most amazing things that we have is actually our Google Arts and Culture program. If you haven't had a chance to dive into that and learn about it, we partner with museums around the world to make art accessible to everybody, right? And so you can pop into the Louvre and see some of the most amazing artworks. And here in Hong Kong, we've got incredible museums and art as well. And so we've got a great partnership in China with the Palace Museum. But I put it out there and say, hey, is anyone interested in arts and culture? And would anyone be interested in working with some of the museums here in Hong Kong, right? And all of a sudden, you'll see these people, because they're passionate about it, put up their hands and begin to do it and figure out how to do it. And I think these are the things. You want to set some guardrails. And once they're doing that, and that's normal, and that's supported by our leaders, it creates this tidal wave of other things that people are interested in. And so we've got things like, sports club, right? We've got folks that have decided to share, like we have a TGIT on Thursdays because we're hybrid, right? So it happens on Thursdays now, and we've got an open sign up, and anyone can come in and share any topic that they want. So our cloud engineers came in and said, hey, let me teach you how to use AI for your upcoming performance review. Interesting, right? And we could hold that back, but we don't, right? Because I think that's part of the culture. And so they go in, they set up all the data, they say, hey, in 2025, when you're writing all of your quarterly check-ins and things like this, make sure you structure the data properly so that when we put it into our internal AI, it can help you draft your next a performance review, right? And so we don't stop that because we think that's part of the fun, right? And they came out with that topic on their own. I can guarantee you this year there's going to be 15, 20 more other topics, and that's just part of our learning culture as well.
Well, that's fantastic. I also like the TGIT, right? I think a lot of people are going to come up with, oh, wait a minute, I could do something on Thursday as well here. So each of you touched on the importance of culture, leading by example. We know that if you're not deliberate about defining what culture you want, culture is going to emerge anyway. So you might as well be deliberate about defining the culture. All three of you have touched on this a little bit. So I wasn't sure if I was going to ask this question or not, but I'm going to ask it because I think all three are primed here. Difficult moment for you as a leader, whether it was in a current role, whether it was in a prior position, whether it's outside of work. So a difficult decision that you've made that's, struggled with responsible leadership. I'll let it sit for 10 seconds maybe and see who wants to share first. Yeah, perfect.
I realize I've been talking to this side of the room, so I'll talk to this side.
I know, every once in a while I try to make sure I squeeze. All right, perfect.
Okay, look, I personally think the most difficult time in my leadership is whenever we have large-scale global reorganizations, right? And in a lot of these reorgs, people are impacted. And I struggle with that. We lose sleep over this, right? And when I meet with other leaders, other country leaders and market leaders at Google, our one-on-ones, we call them therapy sessions, right? Because we're struggling, right? And sometimes as leaders, you don't know who to talk to and how to talk to and work through some of these problems because they're so confidential, let's say, right? And so we support each other. I think that's very important, and to find an outlet, whether that is with your peers or with outside help. Secondly, I would say is there's the responsibility of the company, which is, hey, there is a reorg happening. We need to go and find ways to realign our cost structures or whatever it is. So you can rationalize that. But then I also think how you show up for the person that's being impacted is also very important, right? And so whether that is, hey, like, can I help you with resume editing? Or, if the opportunity comes up in the future, can I help you with interview practice? Or how can I help you tap into my network to then help you land somewhere during this period of search or whatever it is, right? And so over time, you kind of get better at compartmentalizing the two, but I always believe that, yes, we work for a company and they need us to do something, but how you show up as a person is even more important long term and continuing to support those that are impacted. So these are recent examples. I mean, you've heard about a lot of the tech adjustments after COVID, and I think these were very difficult for me personally.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. There's always business imperatives that leaders need to deliver on and execute on. And unfortunately, these types of deliverables result in impacts to people's jobs and therefore livelihoods. And everybody will understand the business rationale why something needs to be done, right? But how we show up as humans and individuals, how they feel, right? Walking out the door, shaking that hand, thanking them for everything that they've contributed, going that extra mile, that extra step to even helping lay foundations for the next chapter of their careers, really remembering that, right? Because that sense of feeling when they've left is, okay, how did my leader kind of take care of me and treat me even up until the very last moment? That's what they'll remember, right? The experiences and the relationships, that's what lasts, right? And so I think that's probably the most important part, and very similar to Michael as well, having worked at a large corporate and in different spots around the world, these types of initiatives inevitably happen, and so how do you treat that with the amount of empathy, right, and that human touch, I think is super important and paramount.
Yeah, leaders need to make difficult decisions. We know that more now than ever. But how the decision is made, and probably more so, how the decision-making process actually unfolds. You're right. And it's not just remembering it in the moment. It's years and years later that you hear about how somebody was treated.
Yeah, and just one final point to build on it. And lucky for me, because I grew up under leaders that really, going all the way back to my first one, that personal accountability. And maybe this is also to take a little quote from Game of Thrones, right? Whoever delivers a sentence, right, has to carry out the execution. Yeah. And I know that's a maybe poor analogy, but if you're going to impact somebody's livelihood, be there on the last day, right? You're not doing it from Zoom. You're not be there, shake that person's hand, thank them, and make sure they're leaving with some dignity and head held high. I think that's so important, right? Because it's easy to do it via email from the other side of the world somewhere, and maybe sometimes logistically that's hard to make it happen, but really try your best to be there, right, in person and have that kind of interaction.
That connection, for sure. I'm going to open it up shortly to the audience, so that's your fair warning. I'm going to give Fanny a chance to contribute to this question, but if anybody has any questions, think now. I'll come back to you. If not, I'm going to keep going. So, Fanny.
All right, thank you, Brian. Actually, if I can share one difficult moment, that would be 15 years back when I was in one of the note issuing bank. I was the HR business partner for the branch network. So you can imagine that due to a massive restructuring, I have to face all the different leaders from a branch network to distribute the several hundreds of letters within 2 days. So that was extremely difficult. Not to mention how to manage my team, how to manage all the different stakeholders across the bank. But what I really want to learn, share the key learnings from the journey. That's really a difficult moment in my life. But on hindsight, and we look back, actually there are 4 C that I would like to share. Number 1 is the courage. How we give ourselves the courage to face the situation. How we face the overall context with brave, with belief, with constant principle that we can get through. Second C is about caring, and followed by compassion. And last but not least is about the consistency in messaging. Because in a world whereby that situation, things move fast, super complex, complicated, with different things evolving every single minute, how we as a leader keep the message consistently, how we deliver from our heart, and also with compassion and empathy to all the people. So putting all these things together, how we strike a nice balance between ethical decision and also empathy is always an essence. I'm sure it's a lifelong lesson to learn from.
Wonderful. Thank you, all 3, for giving very personal examples, but also some consistency around the human touch and the compassion and the empathy as well. I don't know how the process works for audience questions, but we'll give people a chance. If anyone has a specific question they want to ask a panelist, first hand I see.
I'm just wondering, who do you admire most and why? To the panel.
I'll go. One leader in my past that comes to mind, he's since retired, but I mean, he lives and breathes personal accountability all day, every day. I've had many a times where I was, to be perfectly blunt, quite boneheaded in different situations, and he would be the first one to drag me into his office and say, "What was that? Right? You got to do better." And so behind closed doors, he would always give it to me straight, and he would always articulate it in a manner that really, really connected with me because he knew exactly which buttons to press with me. But at the same time, you know, when I did make errors of judgment or make mistakes, he's always the first one to kind of provide air cover and defend as well. At times, you know, against some heat that he'd have to wear, but he would do it. And that leading by example, that taking ownership, that giving me direct feedback, radical candor, right, which is very familiar within Google. I mean, he absolutely lived and breathed that. And so those types of character traits, those types of leadership traits, I continue to carry with me as well. And so, yeah.
Amazing. One more?
I just have a question about sustainability. And my question for Eni or all of the panelists is with regards to your concept of sustainability, because we talk a lot about sustainability in terms of quarterly measures and metrics and energy measures and metrics. I would like to hear what your strategy is towards sustainability from a quarterly context, and I mean in the next quarter century, and from an energy context in the terms of the context of your personal energy, in terms of how you model that moving forward. I grew up at a time when a lifelong career in one company was the goal. I did not live that, and I don't expect that any leaders that are coming out of university today are moving into a workplace where there is any sense of lifelong career paths. So the only constant that we face today is change. So I'd like, from your personal context, what's your definition of sustainability within that framework?
I don't know if anyone's brave to be able to share a little bit about their perspective on this question. Thank you for asking.
Sure. Thank you for your question. I would say from my personal experience, sustainability is really about to build the right system with the people culture whereby we really align all the different needs and priorities to drive and deliver the long-term vision. And along the journey, I just want to mention that there would be different traits and mix along. And how we balance different challenges, different system, resources, people, all the things that we face in terms of challenges day to day. And then it's all about, this is one thing. The other is about the leadership in the corporate, that they put in the priority to see how important sustainability is all about in terms of the agenda, on top of all the daily priorities. So I would say these two things. I'm mindful of the time. Hopefully, can share some context with this question.
And no, it's a great conversation starter, and we'll be around, so you can dig a little bit deeper or hear from some other examples as well. So, 20 seconds each. Final takeaway for the audience. What's it going to be?
Okay, I would use two words to concrete. Number one is to encourage all of us to live with an ethical compass. This is really the motto that I encourage all my mentees to live with. Always come with an ethical compass. Number two, live up to what we promise and be always held accountable.
Awesome. Thank you.
Lead with empathy, right? Understand that we are all people and humans, and that human connection cannot be lost, notwithstanding all the technological marvel and changes happening. And then secondly, and I keep repeating this, own it. Really own it.
Empathy, own it. I love it.
My two words are bold and responsible, right? As leaders, this is, I believe, the most exciting time in the world with technology and what it can do. I've been in tech my whole life. And so I think it can do a lot of good. And we're going to need incredibly bold and responsible leaders to make that happen as well.
Excellent. Fanny, Terrence, Michael, thank you very much for sharing your personal expertise, a little bit about your organizations, and going beyond that as well, too. And I appreciate